Radio Free Skaro.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Radio Free Skaro, episode number 695. I am Steven in Wisconsin.
Warren in Vancouver.
And Chris in Edmonton.
Yeah, I want to point out, we've pressed record at 11:03 p.m. Central Daylight Time. That at this very moment, on the PBS station that airs here in Madison, Wisconsin, or close to Madison, Wisconsin, The Power of Kroll is playing
Nice.
on TV. I can't tell you how warm inside that makes me to know that even with Pluto TV, which apparently a lot of people are enjoying watching Pluto TV in the US because Doctor Who's on there all the time and stuff, but to see that on the guide, thinking, what? The Power of Kroll airing on TV, like omnibus version? Like it's yeah, so
you get the joys of Romdat and the Swampies and John Leeson not as K9.
Exactly.
Oh, and sir,
Yeah.
shoot, what's his name?
What? John Abineri?
No, well, he's in there too, but also
Maddock.
Philip Maddock.
Philip Maddock. Yeah,
His last role in Doctor Who. Yeah.
brain didn't want to work for me there.
That's all right. So that's exciting. Also, I want to mention this today before we go on with the news. Today, by the way, is the Ron Jones Miniscope Part 1. Yes, average director Ron Jones will be featured for the next 2 weeks on this podcast, and we'll be looking at Black Orchid, Time Flight, and Arc of Infinity later on this podcast. Have either of the two of you heard of a place called the House on the Rock?
I've heard the name, but that's about it.
Yeah. Okay. Chris, you at all? This thing? Have you ever heard of it at all?
Is that weird Wisconsin house that's featured in Good Omens?
It's not in Good Omens. American Gods. Which
American Gods. Sorry. Yes.
Yeah. I haven't. I've only watched the first 2 episodes of season 1, and I've heard that it features in there.
Season 2.
It's in season 2 apparently. So I haven't got that far. So no spoilers. But I had no idea what to expect. Erica has sort of talked it up for a while. You know, one day we have to go to the House on the Rock. I had no idea what to expect. I still don't know what. I've been there. I was there for 3 hours, and I still don't know what I just saw.
In American Gods, they shoot in there.
Yeah, I've heard. Yeah,
no spoilers. It looks, esoteric. Does not begin to describe it.
It's ridiculous.
There's lots of carousels apparently.
There's this massive giant carousel of dolls, and another one that has these weird satyrs and other strange beasts, and there's a whole it's madness. It's like a Tim Burton fever dream come to life.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's weird since Tim Burton's stuff usually is a Tim Burton fever dream.
That's actually true.
Given it's Midwest, more like a Neil Gaiman fever dream.
Well, that's because he probably maybe he wrote American Gods in a fever dream when he was in the House on the Rock and thought, that's it. I've come to what this, and it's insane. It was the most amazing and weirdest thing I have ever seen in my life, I think, and I'm still coming to terms with it. And
you've been to many science fiction conventions.
I know. I've been listen. I've stayed up all night on a Sunday night at Gallifrey 1. I've seen some things, probably mostly in my own fever dream. Of course, lying on the mushroom that used to be in the lobby back in the olden days. The olden days being 3 years ago.
Butt plug of Rassilon.
Yeah. But the House on the Rock. If it's near Spring Green, Wisconsin, it's an hour and a bit west of Madison, the capital city. If you are in the area, try to check it out. And I took so many pictures during the course of it, and I'm thinking this doesn't justify it. It's the most bizarre thing I've ever seen. So With that in mind, Chris presents us with a massive email news list today to cover of various things that are happening in the Doctor Who world, including a ton of stuff from Big Finish, who are, of course, celebrating their 20th anniversary. But first, I don't think this is a spoiler for us to sort of say this, but because it's the Mirror who are reporting it. An exclusive, they say. They brag that it's an exclusive.
We're annoyingly right sometimes.
Sometimes they are when it comes to TV. It's Nicola Methven, who is the TV editor, who has actually posted this. It's not some flunky or something like that.
Some flunky, yes. Somebody they keep in the closet and whip occasionally.
Exactly. Apparently an episode. I'm not going to list the episode just in case it is a spoiler, but apparently they're going to be dealing with an eco message this upcoming series by highlighting plastic waste in a new episode, which is good, I suppose. I mean, Barry Letts and Terrence Dix tried to do the same thing in The Green Death in 1973, so I'm all for Doctor Who trying to tackle climate change.
There's a Torchwood Big Finish that recently came out featuring Reese. I can't remember the name of it. I'm sure it's very well publicized on Big Finish's site, but it deals with plastic waste in the ocean and the Nestines who
it's got a gun,
who come to take the plastic because they can use it, and that's the solution. I think something like that. That's the basic plot at any rate of yeah.
Gotcha. Well, I don't know what the plot for this episode, if indeed this is a correct report, but yeah, and it won't be Autons apparently either. But the most intriguing thing, a part of this this article from the Mirror, I hasten to add, it's the Mirror and everything like that, is that it hints, almost backhandedly in a way, that Doctor Who will be returning for a full series early next year, following a second festive special.
Which could be New Year's.
We've had rumors of maybe a Christmas special being a thing at the end of the year, and this is just more of the same scuttlebutt.
I suppose so. Could be. Maybe it's just reporting on that same scuttlebutt. Like I'm not too sure. Who is the Doctor Who insider who is reporting on this? I wonder. One show inside. That's what it is. It's a show insider. Like it could be someone on location,
and
it could be somebody who did the catering that day. It doesn't necessarily insider can mean anything.
And more importantly, will an episode of Doctor Who Confidential profile this person?
If only. God.
Like when they.
It's just like political reporting, where they do something like administration official says that could be anybody, but it's probably a fairly high source depending on who the reporter is.
Yeah,
it's more
Jared
a case,
Kushner. Yeah.
More a case of referencing that one episode of Confidential that featured the catering staff.
They did do an episode on the catering staff. That's probably towards the tail end of the.
Well, so did the Game of Thrones documentary about the Last Watch. So.
I haven't watched that yet. I think
it's great because they do concentrate on people you wouldn't normally. It's not like there's a bit with the stars, but mostly it's sort of the people on the not periphery because they all contribute, but it's people who do stuff you normally don't get highlighted. I guess is the best way to put it.
Oh, that's
so it's not bad.
Yeah, I PVR'd that, and I'm going to watch that when I get back from vacation. When I get back from Convergence, I should say that Erica and I are going to be at Convergence next weekend too. The two of you aren't, so we're probably going to wrangle something different for the news list, I should also add. But I would like to watch that. Before we move on, I want to recommend Apollo 11. I don't know if anyone has seen that movie.
I have PVR'd that. I haven't watched it yet.
I saw it. It came out in theaters like the beginning of the year, and CNN finally aired it. And I was expecting like a talking head thing. Oh, okay, here comes Buzz Aldrin.
It's all archive footage, I think.
It's all archive footage. I PVR'd it on CNN. It aired like the last Sunday in June before this, and I PVR'd it, and it was like. First off, they discovered like reels of like 65 millimeter film of like footage of people watching it on the ground, and then like also when the touchdown after.
People watching it on the ground makes me think of it as like a YouTube reaction video.
It kind of was, but
absolutely not.
Yeah.
Do not diminish mankind's greatest achievement with that nonsense.
It's
also I hesitate to say this, but it's just like the Phantom Menace documentary. The best thing about the Phantom Menace, which is all fly on the wall, where you never get anything but just here's what's happening in front of you. There's no narration or anything. which is who are the guys? What's the name of the two guys who did Grey Gardens? They kind of pioneered this whole thing.
I don't know. A direct cinema, it's kind of called. Where there's no voiceover, no narration. It literally everything that happens in that movie is footage from the moon landing itself, and apart from the graphics, this is great. There's the graphics that they sort of use is like when there's no film footage of the capsule flying through space, they'll have like what looks kind of like computer graphics to sort of show what's going to happen, and the thing's going to split off from there. And all the technology that's used for those graphics are made on computers that were available in 1969. All the music, which is stunning, is also made on instruments and computers that were only available in 1969. It's amazing.
So they don't fake it? They actually went out and got a mainframe to do the graphics?
They probably made him, probably
thereof?
something like that. Yeah, it's ridiculous. Anyway, I watched it on CNN. I started watching it. They did a commercial break, because why not? I paused it. I went to iTunes. I bought it, and I watched the rest of the movie that way because it was worth it. So there's a recommendation for you. Apollo 11. It's fantastic. I hope it wins the Academy Award for Best Documentary next year. Or I will throw a fit. I will fly down to Los Angeles, get a table from IKEA, put that table together, bring it to the center stage at the Oscars, and flip that table if it doesn't win.
And then give them an Oscar of your own making, made of paper mache. Green.
Exactly. Yes, possibly. All right. Back on course to Doctor Who. Doctor Who magazine issue 540 came out. It's sort of kicking off the year of John Pertwee, because it's 100 years since he was born next July, July 7th. And there's a big interview with Sean Pertwee, who is, of course, his son, who speaks very highly of his father and stuff, and a whole bunch of... There's an unpublished interview from, like, the very first Doctor Who convention in 1977, which John Pertwee was at, and also an unpublished interview with Barry Letts as well.
That one was... I didn't know it until recently, because it's not in the summary for the Doctor Who magazine, but apparently that interview with Barry Letts was done by 2008 by Steve Hatcher of the Hoovers.
Ah, really? Okay,
yeah,
cool.
He was he put something on Facebook about that yesterday or the day before about being proud of having it featured, and rightly so.
Nice. Oh, that's very nice. Well, so there, our monthly plug of Doctor Who magazine, the official Doctor Who magazine, continues, because they have a lot of interesting stuff, including some production notes even from Chris Chibnall, where he gives away nothing apart from stuff you've already known, that being about the fact that the Judoon are back and everything. So,
and continuing the third Doctor stuff, Katie Manning joins the Time team for the episode, and I think it was Simon Garrier who decided what Pertwee stories the Time team was going to watch. I can't remember which ones he picked, but read the magazine to find out, I guess.
Yes, and also a reminder that July 6th, which is what, a Saturday? A Saturday, yeah.
Yep.
Sean Pertwee is celebrating his father's career in a special centenary documentary on BBC Radio 4 Extra, which is available anywhere in the world, so you can listen to that wherever, even if you're not in the UK. That features like rare archive material and interviews and stuff, so that is at 8 a.m. on Saturday, July the 6th, one day before what would have been his 99th birthday. So, yep, old John Pertwee all the time. Let's talk about some tat here. So there's we talked about this beforehand, that B&M was going to start selling some exclusive character options, Big Finish Doctor Who action dollies for Warren's benefit.
Wait, is he going to say it right? Is he going to say it right? That's
It's quite the crossover there.
I'm building to it. And they have indeed posted the first images of the Dark Eyes 8th Doctor with navy blue Dalek set.
That is sorely tempting.
The blue and silver looks really striking on that Dalek.
It really does. It's like a Dallas Cowboys Dalek in a way. It's kind
of man, it does.
A 70s Dallas Cowboys Dalek?
Yeah, yeah, it is. Yeah.
Dude, you can't say that when you're in Wisconsin.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Green Bay, Dallas.
Are we all old enough to remember when the Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders were just this huge media thing for like about a year?
They for like a year, what, in the 1970s or something like that?
Yeah, in the 70s. Like, they showed up on the Love Boat and all sorts of insane nonsense.
Yeah. Well, even more recently, there was like, I don't know how many series it ran, reality competition show to become Adele's cowboy cheerleader.
Wow.
But I think their serious high point was the 70s for some reason.
Oh, big time. Yeah.
Everything's high point.
Yeah.
Same with the Cowboys themselves.
Can't mention the Cowboys in Wisconsin. Sorry.
That's a good
Well,
point.
I'm not in
actually.
Wisconsin, so I don't care.
I know. I did violate probably still. Oh, I think there might be the state police coming after me. We should probably move those along. These are coming out, as I said, at B&M. Like there'll be thousands of these available in stores, but only at these stores. So Warren, you're going to have to find a mule of some sort to.
I've already had a couple of lovely people. They know who they are. Contact me with volunteer muling. So thank you, people. You're wonderful.
Good work.
I didn't even ask. People just kind of showed up and said, "I'm pretty sure you want these," and I'm like, "I'm pretty sure you're right."
Oh,
Well,
man.
apparently,
In fact, and this is just sorry. Go ahead, Chris.
I was going to say, apparently there's a limited version of these. That's only 150 available, which is...
Well, I'm pre-annoying myself because I demand, I don't just want, I demand that the, even though the audio doesn't really reflect this,
Right.
I want the iClaudius face-mapped version of the War Doctor for that one instead of the proper War Doctor.
Oh, like the old
Which is
War.
ridiculous, I
Yeah.
know.
You want young John Hurt as part of this.
Yeah, youngish John Hurt, which shows up in like 2 seconds in the Night of the Doctor.
Yeah.
Which doesn't make any sense because in the actual audio adventure, I think they're going to pull it from. That would make any sense.
Yeah, I don't know.
But I demand it as a fan.
Well, that is your right, and indeed your right.
Privilege?
Actually, that was privilege. Definitely privilege. Yeah, I think so. I think you need to be privileged. It's as I mentioned, it's a big time here for Big Finish, celebrating their 20th anniversary of doing their Doctor Who audios. They are doing a live stream, a 20-hour live stream over the course of the 20th and 21st of July, with a whole host of different audio adventures. They're not going to do them live. They're just going to play them live, and you can drop in and listen. But there'll be other stuff, like I imagine some of the folks. There'll be video appearances from various people who have past and present, who've been working on it. And I imagine it'll all be sort of curated by Nicholas Briggs probably and stuff. So yeah, that's going to happen.
They're premiering the first episode of The Legacy of Time, which is an anniversary box set.
That's pretty cool. That's cool. That's a neat thing to do. So good work, Big Finish, on doing that thing. Because July 2019, you see, is the 20th anniversary. It's July of 1999, the space year of 1999, like a whole 2 months before the moon was blown off course and cast into space. Big
By the
Finish
release of
started.
Phantom Menace.
Yeah, that's what it was too, actually. Yeah, the Sirens in Time, the very first Big Finish story appearance. So they are celebrating with that fact. They're also celebrating with another vinyl release, Wave of Destruction. The Tom Baker story is coming to vinyl at Sainsbury's. This is a regular thing. These things like sell out, so they keep making them, and those ones also sell out. So it's become quite a collector's item. So those are coming the day before, 19th of July. What a weekend. What a weekend that will be. That's like Comic-Con weekend, too. I mean, that's a lot of Doctor Who stuff.
1,500 copies to be released, it says.
Yeah. In Sainsbury's. So get there, and get there quick. Go to B&M and go to Sainsbury's. Get your limited edition Doctor Who stuff. There's also, from Big Finish, there are a couple of Torchwood prequel box sets coming. Torchwood One Latter Days with Gareth David Lloyd, who wrote some of these episodes as well, along with Tracy Ann Oberman, who of course played Yvonne. Why can't I think of her last name? Hartman.
We talked about it before recording.
I know. Well, that was a long time ago, Chris.
That's why you can't remember a name.
Yeah, exactly. So
That's fair.
That's coming out in September, and then in 2020 is another one called Torchwood Soho. So these are both prequels, which is why Yanto is in there, because spoiler alert for those who have never seen Torchwood Children of Earth, Yanto dies.
I wonder if at the end of him writing this, he stapled his manifesto / script to the Yanto Shrine in Cardiff.
Maybe that's where they found it. Just it looks like Gareth David Lloyd has left a script here for this. He should have just submitted it like everyone else. I guess we'll just produce it, and so that's what they did.
I'm pretty sure that's not how Big Finish operates at all.
Probably not.
I've had a hankering to go back and watch Children of Earth. It's been some years now, and it might be time again.
It's a gut punch. I've literally watched it twice. I watched it once when it first came out, and then again before I was going to host the Torchwood panel at Calgary Expo in 2013, I think it was, with John Barrowman, Eve Miles, and Gareth David Lloyd. And even then, I was like, "Oh, this is just." I can't do it. That was like years ago. That's like 6 years ago.
It came out of nowhere, and I think I have not done it at all since then because of that reason. I'm like, yeah, it's great, but do I want to watch it again? It's kind of like watching like Threads or something. You're like, yes, it's amazing, but
listening to was it the most recent? Yeah, it was this week's. I think The Memory Cheats. That other show that you do that you have never have any recollection of because you record it so far in advance. Yeah. You guys covered off Heaven Sent, and you kind of started the episode out by saying how Heaven Sent is one of the best episodes of Doctor Who ever produced, and you can never watch it just because there's just so much. Like it's just got such an oomph behind it that it's tough to like. You can't just flip on.
It's not a casual.
You can't just casually rewatch it like you could say Robots of Death or something.
But easier
like
than
that.
Children of Earth, I'd say.
Yeah, like you're not going to say 5 Doctors or Heaven Sent. Yeah, I want to know 5 Doctors because you can it's light and fluffy and you can watch it. Children of Earth, same thing. Like it's been. I don't know, 5-6 years.
It's been 10 years.
Well, 10 years since it came out.
Yeah,
5-6 years since I last watched it. Yeah. And that's probably about as frequently as I could muster.
It's tough
because there's, and then with Cat had Torchwood was Cat's gateway into Doctor Who. Because we had her and Eric and Nat on to do that Wednesday Cutaway in 2009 afterward. Anyway, because Torchwood was her gateway to Doctor Who, she's got some very strong feelings about Torchwood, and especially Children of Earth, and it might be a tough sell to get her to watch it again.
Yeah, it might be something to do on your own. I love how they aired that. It was one a night, Monday through Friday, 5 episodes back in July of 20.
Well, it was great. It was great for a viewing experience. Horrible for us as a review process, though.
That's true.
I've always felt that because of that, it's almost like I remember like we were kind of like Torchwood is on. I think we sort of petered out when it came to reviews, and then we weren't expecting a great deal from it. We just knew it was coming 5 episodes in 1 week. It was so we, in a way, I remember in retrospect, it was kind of like, oh, thank God we only have to devote 1 episode to Torchwood. And then we convene at the end of all that and we go, oh my God, like this might have been the best thing we've ever seen that Russell T Davies has ever done. And we only have 1 week to talk about it. And so like it's kind of a shame. Maybe we should do like a retrospective rewatch or something like that.
Well, if we thought about it earlier, we could have done it for the 10th anniversary.
Could have done it.
That's July, whatever. So I mean,
it's gone.
We're gonna miss that. Yeah,
it's like next week. There's stuff to do. There's Ron Jones to talk about. We cannot postpone Torchwood Children of Earth 10-year retrospective.
No, Ron Jones comes first. Ron Jones comes first. It's in his rider. Oh, shoot! What was I going to say?
Peter Capaldi. Was going to talk about Peter Capaldi. I was going to talk about Peter Capaldi because, like, I forget sometimes that he's in it and he's the best thing in it, even though it's like really, really good. Like he's just amazing in that.
Oh, in Children of Earth as Frobisher. Yeah,
as Frobisher. Like honestly, when Peter Capaldi was like, oh, he looks like he might be the new Doctor. Like the weekend leading up to his eventual announcement in August of 2013, I was like, oh my God, he was like Frobisher in Torchwood Children of Earth. He was amazing. Yes, I would make him Doctor Who. Like I wasn't even thinking about Fires of Pompeii or Malcolm Tucker. I hadn't even seen Malcolm Tucker at that point. I just
for all the continuity. For all the continuity noodling involved with him being in Fires of Pompeii, why didn't they ever say anything about Frobisher? I mean,
because that's over there somewhere. Yeah. Don't forget, speaking of Big Finish stuff, that Nick Briggs was in Children of Earth as well.
He was too.
I was just gonna say a moment ago that I forgot about was you mentioned how that might be the best thing that Russell T Davies has ever written. At the time, I would have agreed. Still haven't watched Years and Years. It's sitting there, it's waiting to be watched.
It's pretty good. The first episode is all I've seen.
Told it's good and maybe fizzles by the end, but I'll find out in due course. But I don't know if it's
right now too. Yeah,
yeah, it's starting. Yeah, it just began airing on HBO.
I'll tell you right now, though. Emma Thompson has been a crush of mine since The Tall Guy, and has never abated. But she's playing a populist politician, and this is a difficult road for Warren Fry. I can tell you that right now.
Can your love stand the test?
I don't know. Is my love strong enough? As Brian, what's his name? Ferry said once.
Brian Ferry. But as far as RTD writing stuff goes, I still need to watch Queer as Folk at some point. But Cucumber, very, very good stuff.
Yeah.
If you still haven't had a chance to see it. Cucumber, banana, and tofu. The linked things.
Yeah. That he did a couple years ago now, I think it was, yeah. Segue complete. One more Big Finish thing up. There's a whole 12-part series set on Caldor with robots. It's called The Robots. You know, the Robots of Death universe that they've done. There's a new 12-part series, by the way, of the world created by Chris Boucher. So that's coming as well.
I have listened to the January 2018. I just checked, and I got around to now Sons of Caldor, the Tom Baker adventure, written by a friend of the show, Andrew Smith, and it is quite good. So. Hopefully, more of the same.
More of the same. Here's hoping. Speaking of audio stuff, so Steve Broster, who did many, like over 50, I think, DVD features for the DVD range, and someone who I thought was always a very unadventurous pseudonym for Steve Roberts.
Because it's an anagram.
It's literally just Broster Roberts. It's just like, come on, Steve Roberts. No, he was obviously a real, actual, proper filmmaker himself. Anyway, he has now veered into audio production. There's a new audio adventure coming. It's out now, actually, this past week, called The Man from Venus. It stars Sophie Aldred and other people who have, of course, been to Doctor Who and stuff. It's an amusing look at. It's kind of like based on a mockumentary. I don't know, how would you sort of explain this?
Sort of that, yeah. Mervyn Robinson, subject of a documentary made in 1989.
Yeah.
I don't even know if that's real.
No, it isn't. That's a great thing. So basically, here the blurb is this: for many years, Mervyn's life focused on his idol, former Doctor Who Tom Baker. But in 1994, he began to have romantic feelings for friend and fellow Who fan Tracy Collingston. That's played by Sophie Aldred. The problem is that she's also infatuated with Tom Baker. How can Mervyn win Tracy's heart? Where does the mysterious man from Venus fit into this bizarre love triangle? And once has escaped from a mysterious top secret research center. So it sounds like quite the lark. Tom Baker does not appear in it, but there is somebody voicing Tom Baker who does a fantastic job as Tom Baker.
I love in the whole Meet the Cast page on the site. I just Stuart Grant, who plays Tom Baker. I love his pose.
Yeah,
he's just
he's
just like all like frowny and big-eyed, and it's fun.
It is fun. It's available right now on Audible, Amazon, iTunes for a reduced price right now before it goes up. It's £6.39. It'll go up to its regular price of $10.99 relatively soon. So get in on it. Details in the show notes, radiofreescott.com, or go to themanfromvenus.org to order your own copy. Sounds like it's going to be fabulous.
I just checked Audible Canada, and it is indeed there for $8.74.
Look at that.
$8.71, pardon me.
Canada, and we get nothing, okay? Nothing. We do get, however, classic Doctor Who on DVD again, because we've talked in the past about how the BBC are re-releasing 10 Doctor Who stories that have been out of print but are now back in print. You can go to the BBC shop, shop.bbc.com, and you yourself can get like the Time Meddler and the Sunmakers and Planet of the Spiders and 3 Doctors Special Edition.
And Frontios, directed by Ron Jones.
Yeah, we're talking about it next week. That's a pre-order, so you got to get in on that one quick.
Yes,
we're talking about it next week. So there's those 10 classic stories from various Doctors are back. And it's about time, and they're on the BBC shop. So
that's good you say that, because the TV movie is one of them.
It is too.
That
that's
is a
right.
very good DVD. I have that DVD, and it is got excellent supplemental stuff.
It is, yeah.
It
It's
is, yeah.
Stradling's 7-Year Hitch.
I don't think I've actually watched the TV movie. I've just watched all the
Don't need to.
all 7-Year Hitch and all the rest of it.
Yeah, you remember how the thing
There's
went.
an amazing amount of stuff on that, which is all phenomenal. Yeah.
Speaking of DVD stuff, Josh Snares, who put together a great 8 or 9 part YouTube series on missing episodes this past year, has also now cobbled together basically all the comparisons between the original visual effects that appeared on Doctor Who and then the optional CGI replacements, all in one go, 25 minutes worth. You can say, hey, which ones had the revised special effects, and were they good or not, and do I want to see them again, or do I want to see the wobbly spaceship from Dalek Invasion of Earth instead? Now you can watch it all in one go.
The answer is clearly, of course, wobbly.
Wobbly, always wobbly.
The video puts them in broadcast order rather than, say, DVD release order or anything else.
Which you got to pick an order, I suppose, somehow, because have they ever redone effects? I don't think they've ever done that. I think they ever took a second crack at.
I don't think so.
I want to say no, but I could be wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah, same here.
Maybe. Anyway, links in the show notes, radiofreescaro.com, or indeed your listening device. Just a few more things, and then we're going to get to Black Orchid, Time Flight, and Arc of Infinity, folks. We promise.
Oh boy, oh boy.
I know, you're just waiting for this.
Nothing like waiting for Time Flight discussions.
It's amazing. The Mythmakers DVDs, the Mythmakers VHS release came out in the 80s and 90s, which were like candid interviews with people who worked on Doctor Who and stuff, which are great, and they've been coming back out on DVD as well. Well, there's a new one coming where Eric Roberts, speaking of the Doctor Who TV movie, of course, played the Master in 1996. He is interviewed by his wife,
who is also in the TV movie.
I can totally see how this played out. He's in the can. Dear, there's a call from Mythmakers. Who? Mythmakers. Yeah. Who?
Okay.
Oh, they want to do an interview. Only if you interview me. Okay. Yeah. That's probably how it happened.
Get your phone out. This is how we're going to do it. Yeah.
He was being I hesitate to say a difficult Hollywood personality, but it's not like I'm the first person to say that about Eric Roberts. So
yeah. Well, we'll see.
Although he could have been perfectly pleasant for all I know.
Well, I don't know. Maybe you could find out yourself by going to
should ask him.
The link in the show notes and ordering your own copy. It's coming out. So 70 minutes worth. 70-minute interview with Oscar-nominated Eric Roberts. Minute run. Next up, I'm looking forward to this. I know I keep talking about it. I'm going to buy a VR headset. Well, my bluff is going to be called because September is coming, and that's when Doctor Who: The Edge of Time is coming out. And they had a game demo, so to speak, and a big giant interview with the developers in Den of Geek. It's a great interview. It's great. The question and answer to sort of tell you all about the things, about how they went into the Doctor Who experience before they shut that thing down, and basically took captures of all the artifacts and stuff.
So they scanned it all.
Yeah. So it's all in there. It's like 3D images when you're walking around.
Well, what photogrammetry is it's a digital representation of the whole thing. It's one of the first times you see it is in Fight Club, where you're zipping around in garbage cans and through furniture and stuff. That's photogrammetry. It's one of the first times.
Oh, is that the IKEA catalog scene?
Yeah, exactly. That's one of the first David Fincher will digitize anything, and he proved it with Fight Club. But this gives you basically you're in the Doctor Who experience more or less.
Damn, that's gonna be cool. You play as yourself essentially, or as a companion of the Doctor. You get to wave around the sonic screwdriver, but it's Doctor Who herself, Jodie Whittaker, who actually narrates you through and gives you tips and everything and advice and tells you what to do, which is pretty cool. She recorded all of that without even the developers of the game meeting her at all. So
I love in the interview,
which I bet you is more prevalent than you'd think.
Probably.
I bet you that happens a lot.
Of course it is. Like back in the day of South Park, Isaac Hayes never did anything. He was on the phone. He was never in the studio.
Oh, yeah. That would not surprise me at all.
He was across the country.
I mean, a more pertinent and interesting example, it would be when Stephen and I did our lines separately for the latest Reality Bomb sketch.
That's true.
Where you get to hear me sing Oklahoma poorly. Everyone, I'm sure you're itching to do that.
Yep, and I didn't hear him saying that. even though we recorded them within minutes of each
not.
other before recording an RFS episode.
Consider yourself lucky.
Yeah.
I do like in the interview, to go off what you were just saying. The question was, what was it like working with Jodie Whittaker? And the answer was, so we did the recordings about a month ago. She's classy, isn't she? Apparently. We didn't meet her. We weren't there. So I was okay.
Yeah, there's the big script. You probably recorded like, okay, here's a bunch of lines. You got 15 minutes when you're waiting for your next scene. Record them. Okay, we're done. Send it off. Get on set. TV. The magic.
Learn from a professional, kid.
Yeah. Have a look at the old interview. There's big long Q&A there with the developers.
It is quite a good Q&A.
Yep, very good Q&A indeed for this Edge of Time game coming out in September. A couple convention notes before the Ron Jones Miniscope begins. An Unearthly Convention, so it's sort of the successor to LI, who has made their first guest announcements. It's Louise Jameson, John Lees, John Peel will be there for the November 23rd and 24th at the Ramada Plaza in Holtzville. The passes go on sale July 1st, so that's like Monday, Canada Day. Mm-hmm. You can get your first passes there. The limited 500. So,
what better way to celebrate Canada Day than buying tickets to a Long Island-based convention?
Doctor Who convention.
I mean, you're making total sense here.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to be spending it looking at NHL transactions because that's when the free agent deadline ends, and so people can sign with anyone they want. So,
yeah,
that's a ritual as old as time, isn't it?
And enjoy some big moves.
Not for me, it ain't.
Yeah. And the last bit of news, the Capitol, the Doctor Who Appreciation Society is putting on the Capitol 5, a full-scale 2-day event happening in the Crown Plaza in London, Gatwick, over the course of the 25th and 26th of April next year. That's a ways away. So that they have announced guests already. Bernard Crimmins, Janet Field, and Carol Ann Ford, Bonnie Langford, and Annika Wills have all been announced as attending, with many more guests to come soon. So in the UK, you can go to a convention of your own as well and not have to rely on going to suburban Long Island or Los Angeles, California, or Chicago TARDIS, or wherever.
Console room
in Minneapolis. Yeah. And there we go. That's it, folks. We did it. All that news that's fit to print and talk about, and all just to build up. Yes?
Plus 11 minutes of Apollo 11 in Wisconsin talk. Yep.
Absolutely. We got it all for you, folks. But now, the piece de resistance, the icing on the cake, is part 1 of our tribute. Tribute? I don't know about that. It's time to talk about, though, Ron Jones in the Miniscope.
Just as I thought. A Miniscope. Now this is outrageous. Who is responsible for this device?
Yeah, it's the long-awaited Miniscope, everyone. This is the one you have been waiting years for us to do.
All pining.
Yeah,
so much pining.
We started with like Robert Holmes all those years. We've touched on David Maloney and Malcolm Clark and Peter Howell and all the other great directors and writers and everyone else out there. Well, now it's time to get to Ron Jones, pedestrian director of 6 Doctor Who stories and next to nothing else. Ron Jones directed 2 episodes of Juliet Bravo, then like a few episodes of a German soap in 1990, and that was it for his directorial career. And he died, sadly, in 1993. I don't know if this ties into anything, but he was born the exact same day that America dropped a bomb on Hiroshima.
Yep, he is, in fact, Godzilla.
Where does this factor in to his Doctor Who career? Only we know. We don't know. We're just going to talk about his stuff. The first half of which, this episode, next week, will be the latter half.
Good God.
I know. We had 6 stories for him. This is the most prolific Doctor Who directors in the 1980s, and yet he has not had a single Doctor Who DVD documentary made about him. That is how unremarkable he is.
That could change for like season 21 or something, because season 19 is out, and I had yet to really look at anything on the season 19 Blu-ray, so I finally had the chance to do so for this. But that's out. There's no Ron Jones stuff on there, and Frontios season 21. Yeah, maybe they could do that, or something on season 23 when that happens.
Or Veros for 22. There's lots
22.
of time. There's lots
Maybe
of
they're
time.
scared of just having a bunch of people sitting down and slagging them off.
Well, I mean, there's like, the Peter R. Newman thing, for example.
Looking for Ron Jones. Yeah, Toby Hadoke could be on that. Yeah. I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to that inevitable DVD future of Toby Hadoke looking into the life and times of Ron Jones.
Yeah.
We're going to take a little more narrow focus and look at the first 3 episodes, that being Black Orchid, Time Flight, and Arc of Infinity. 3 stories all made in pretty rapid succession from one another. And maybe it shows. We'll see.
Yeah, probably yes.
A little bit so for the middle one, yep.
Yeah, Warren watched Arc of Infinity, but Chris, it was your task to watch Black Orchid and Time Flight. Black Orchid, Ron Jones, fresh out of director school after like being a production manager for a little while. John Nathan Turner hears this, throws him a bone basically in directing a 2-part story. This is the thing that would sort of happen throughout his time because Tony Virgo and Michael Owen Morris would get the same treatment for The King's Demons and The Awakening, respectively, basically giving a new director a short little Doctor Who.
Both of those household names.
Yeah, exactly.
Tony Virgo should be a household name. I mean, that's a great name.
Tony Virgo went on to do, I think they both actually went on to do like producing stuff, I think, actually.
Tony Virgo sounds like either like a magician or a porn star.
Or a mobster.
It does kind of, doesn't it? But anyway, let's get on to Black Orchid. Chris, obviously your favorite story of all time.
I mean...
second favorite after the next one.
How could it not be? Yeah, second favorite after Time Flight, for sure. I mean, oh man, I don't know. One overarching thing with watching Black Orchid and Time Flight today is you'd use the word pedestrian to introduce Ron Jones, and oh boy, he is that. He's very safe in his in most of his choices for angles and framing and whatnot. I think it was. I guess it would have to be. I was going to say in Black Orchid near the start. I mean, he manages to get a reasonably decent quasi-tight 4-shot of all the cast around the TARDIS console, which that's a lot of people to fit in a frame.
A wide shot that would do Peter Moffat proud, basically, is what you're saying.
Well, because you have Tegan at the right of frame and the other 3 left of frame. So I mean, there's a bit of a gap between them because the TARDIS console, the time rotor would get in the way otherwise. But the frame ends basically just either side of Tegan and the left hand side. So I mean, it's he could have gone wider, but he shouldn't, and he didn't.
What a start! A start to a Miniscope here. Well, he got a wide shot in. Got a wide shot.
Well, the first shot you see is somebody getting killed, which I think that's the tone for Ron Jones's career.
Mm-hmm. Youch.
I don't know, like this is definitely going to be a continuing thread between the two stories I watched, but his film work, like location stuff, was actually pretty darn good.
Yeah, that's the one thing I noticed too. Yeah,
there's fairly early into Black Orchid. There's a shot of Redford's Sven Cooper running up the hill.
Michael Cochran.
I'd make it. Yeah,
I know. For those people that haven't. Yeah,
Michael Cochran. Yes, Cranley. Sorry, bad Ghostlight reference. Running up the hill to meet the car that the Doctor et al. Are in, and it's like a super super long shot. And he goes running, and it's like follows him, and it actually looks pretty okay. And there's, he goes in behind a few other cricketers, but for the most part, it's just him. So it's not like it's obscured or anything. It looks well. And then just some stuff around like the dance party, Much Music Video dance party that they have at the family estate.
God. I don't think
we're sorry, everyone outside of Canada in the early 1990s. We really are sorry.
There's some good stuff there with the camera work, and then at the end of the episode, at the end of episode 2, after George goes off the roof, there's the shot down from the roof down to the ground, which looks pretty good. So I mean, his his location stuff is pretty quite good. Even in Time Flight is, well, we'll get to more in detail later, but at the early part of that when they're in the cockpit, like that's on film and it's nice and tight. You feel how cramped it is and whatnot while they're doing all the pre-checks and all that. But
it's a reason for that. They're cramped inside of a there is one during the party. There's when Lady Cranley comes down. There's a nice little actually swooping camera shot that sort of follows her along like the sort of the catering table, and then sort of boom over, and then you see like I think it's Tegan and Sir Robert on the dance floor, and I thought that was a time when the camera moved, because I didn't take an official count in the studio
even in the studio he moved the camera a lot, because one of the notes I'd made was not afraid to move the camera.
Like actual camera moves, they're not that common. I never noticed that many, actually. They were just very much, here's where the cameras are. They're standing right there. Honestly, the way that murder mysteries were shot in those days on the BBC, and indeed ITV, I think probably too, if they did multi-camera stuff, I think was very stoic and very staid and very like, let's keep the cameras on tripods. Everyone just let's not lose control. Everyone, we're shooting a murder mystery for old people to enjoy and stuff. They don't like these swooping camera moves. Keep everything still. And so I feel like this is a pretty good story to match up with a director who has never directed anything before. Because
it doesn't demand much of him if he does that. Yeah,
he plays it a bit safe. And one thing that was commended of him, because there was some industrial action that I think basically kiboshed half a day's shooting, I think, in the studio. And they only had 2 days to begin with, and they managed to sort of like rise above it, and I think they gave him like an hour extra on day 2 to finish the shots, but he got him in, and he didn't get flustered or anything. And J&T sent a note to his superior saying, Ron Jones was good in a crisis and didn't panic or anything like that. However, he said something to the effect of, he could have been a little more inspirational perhaps with some of his camera shots, but whatever. I feel like J&T sort of like brings these things upon himself. His great desire to have episodes come in on time and under budget means that he has to cope with the Peter Moffats and Ron Joneses of the world in order to get the Graham Harpers and Peter Grimwades to sort of like go a little bit over time and over budget for a much more interesting looking product,
Well, even then, Grimwade was more, because he's more writer than director in the Davison era.
Well,
kind of was, but
he was.
To kind of go off the compliment earlier to his skill for location shots on film, there was one glaring opposite to that, which is worth pointing out, which is when they're after the doctor in episode 2, after the doctor has been arrested and they're on their way to the police station. There's a conversation in the vehicle as they're going, where the doctor's wanting, he asks to have them stop off at the railway station, but they shoot it just as is in the vehicle. You got the engine, the sound of the car engine, just dominating everything, and the dialogue sounds like utter garbage.
I have a note about that later.
That's
audio wise.
That's the kind of thing that normally they would probably just redo in ADR, but maybe maybe the limited time they had for filming and such, took that possibility out of the window. I don't know.
They only did that for Ditar Latoni, because his lip.
Well, they did some overdubs for him, yeah,
because
it was his lip plate.
Yeah, it couldn't be heard.
But for that car scene, I mean, it's not an overly long scene. It's under a minute, but it just sounds just sounds dreadful.
But you know what? That's what Cars sounded like. I appreciate that they didn't like try to cover up the fact. One of my great pet peeves is in movies, TV shows, whatever, even to this present day, even big budget ones, is like scenes set inside of a nightclub, and it's just like pumping music everywhere and people dancing and yelling and having fun, and people are having just like a conversation like we are basically in the middle of all this,
and it's
like,
perfectly audible.
That's why in Train Spotting it's great when they actually have subtitles, because you would need them.
Right, you're yelling over it, so I don't mind that to hear an actual car engine, because cars were very noisy and made awful sounds back in those days. So here, I'm sure that wasn't a directorial choice. That was probably Ron Holmes going, "Well, I don't know what to do. It's loud. What are you supposed to do?"
Yeah, Well, yeah, ADR.
We all get
overdub that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, let me tell you, ADR was hit and miss even until relatively recently. Last night, as we record this, I watched for the first time the movie L.A. Confidential, which is a great movie. But there is some abominable ADR recording in that movie. Abominable. It's like 1997 that movie was made, and like
still to this day you can pick out ADR stuff that's bad.
Yeah, it is. But oh boy, that was just glaring. Like there was a whole speech on a close up of James Cromwell where like, oh my god, is this like I had actually rewind the iTunes file to sort of think, is there an audio sync? No, because he's and then Kevin Spacey's talking about no. It's just that was just bad ADR. They just basically we tried it once, we hit play and record at the same time, and it didn't work, so we had to go with it.
To be fair, we ADR'd everything we did in the Doctor Who experience in our 2014. And we didn't do any better job than anybody else, so we're just as guilty as anybody else of this.
Yes, us and our zero-budget fan film.
But yes, okay, that we shot surreptitiously on a DSLR.
As a multi-Oscar
It actually turned out better than I thought it would, our ADR nonsense.
It did, actually. Worthy of Ron Jones, you might say.
Yes, worthy might be stretching it, but...
That's the ultimate seal of approval. Worthy of Ron Jones.
You know what? I will say this about Ron Jones, and this happens in Time Flight a little bit too. And I remember reading the production notes on Black Orchid, and the scenes where the Doctor is wandering around the priest hole and the undergrowth, the hidden passages of Cranley House, and it's very dark. And the note said that there was a concern that perhaps these scenes were too dark, because if it gets too dark, the transmitter will go, oh, looks like we're in black, and will shut down. So this is the reason why things were actually brought up. The lights were brought up. It wasn't for like old people to be able to see. It was actually a transmission fault. And so the fact that he actually flirted with like lower light in those scenes and some of the Time Flight scenes in the interior there, I thought was actually quite brave for a director, and it makes me wonder what they were teaching directors in the BBC director course in the early 80s. Perhaps they were sort of like leaning against that long thought notion of like, oh, if you have it too dark, the lights will turn off or something like that, because it's often like the more experienced directors like a Pennant Roberts or Peter Moffat who are the ones who are cranking up the lights in the 1980s, and instead Ron Jones, visionary though he is, Steven Spielberg of the 1980s, is the one that's actually sort of breaking new ground when it comes to lighting, possibly.
Well, there's the one very, very short thing when he's in the darkened hallway. There's like a shaft of light coming through, and it's not the bit where he says, "Why do I always let my curiosity get the better of me?" It's the one before that, but it's like it's like a 6-second thing, and it looks really good with the low light and just the little sliver coming on screen in the background.
Yeah.
His another thing I marked in his favor.
All right.
His montage of the Doctor bowling at the cricket match, pretty good.
Some good shots.
Yeah.
He's not a bad film director, as we'll talk about later on in this first half of the Miniscope. Actually, his film stuff is somewhat commendable. It's his studio stuff that is just very, very safe. Very, very safe indeed.
Maybe he's just less comfortable with that than he was film.
It could be,
yeah. Well, I mean, you've got to think of this relative size of the cameras and the ability for them to move and weight and positioning and freedom or lack thereof.
Two very different ways of doing the same job. So I can see how you'd excel at one over the other.
Yeah, studio is a choreographed ballet. You have to make sure all the actors are lit and in the right place and everything. Whereas film, you can set up a shot at a time and sort of like sculpt it as you desire, and then move on to the next shot in that same
there's
scene.
A whole bunch of stuff you have to deal with anyway, but
there is, but a lot more freedom, I think, on film. This is why I said this before on this podcast, but Russell T Davies said either in an interview or perhaps in his book, The Writer's Tale, that he could conceivably direct an episode of Doctor Who. As it was made now, with single cam, because he could just do this, but like to do multicam is an entirely different beast, and indeed an art form that has probably lost on a lot of today's directors, because they've never had to sort of do something like that.
Yeah, unless you do daytime stuff, I don't see why you would, or news, which is not exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
Those are the two that spring to mind.
Yeah, exactly. So to do a science fiction show with like action sequences and everything else that happen in it on multicam is kind of a bit of a folly that maybe Doctor Who shouldn't have been made this way for 26 years, but it was, and so it's to be commended.
Well, most British TV was, but also I have to praise sports because that is probably the most difficult way to do multicam, and anybody who can do that well should be praised to the high heavens, and doesn't get praised as far as I can tell.
No, not enough, certainly. Yeah. Anything left on Black Orchid before we move on to Time Flight?
The excellent Hugo winning Time Flight. I just made that up.
The only other thing I had marked down, and this is more, as you kind of talked about earlier, the style, the genre, the necessity, but all the shots that had to be done where you have to obscure George or not have him in frame or whatever. Those got really, really tiring.
Right.
But it's a necessity of the beast.
It is, which is what he was credited as, I believe, the Beast.
Yes, he was.
Oddly enough. Warren, any last thoughts on Black Orchid?
No, I mean, I've watched it a bunch of times for a bunch of different reasons, including what we do, and it's never really bugged me. It's just kind of been there. But then again, a lot of British stuff was exactly the same. So it didn't strike me as, Ron Jones is up to his old tricks of doing nothing, or his young tricks, I think, at the time. It was more like, this is just like any other garden party BBC thing I've ever watched. Like pick your random episode of 80s Mystery, and it's the same stuff. Or Campion or something. Like, it was just conventional, and that's not entirely terrible. It's just there.
Story-wise for Black Orchid, they don't say how much time passes between George falling and the funeral. That gets referenced at the very, very end. But however long that interim was, I'm pretty sure Sir Robert and Tegan had a thing.
They totally had a thing. Yeah. Oh, that was a nice moment. Actually, I was kind of sad. It was sad when like Tegan sort of leaves and says goodbye, after the dance and everything. Oh, stay a little long. Linger, Tegan. There's something there. You're missing it. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Sir Robert was gonna have a hoot.
Yeah. On that note, Time Flight, the last story of season 19, and not the first time where Doctor Who's production office thought, you know what, we need a big giant season finale episode. With the money that we had at the beginning of the season, but we don't have now. So can we make this with no money? And the original director Andrew Morgan said, no, we cannot. And so he left. And so John Nathan Turner says, okay, well, tell you what, I've got Ron Jones in my office right now talking about Black Orchid that he just finished. Ron, how would you like to direct the season finale? There's a Concorde, there's a planet, which we don't, Ancient Earth, which we don't have a chance of shooting on location, so it's got to be in studio. What do you say? Perfect. Okay, you're in. And that's why Ron Jones, novice director, gets handed this unshootable epic of time.
A veritable jambalaya of ideas.
Unshootable is apt. Mm-hmm. So we talked about Time Flight in the Peter Grimwade Miniscope from I don't know how many years ago now. I think it was like
1997 is when we talked about that.
2011 or 2012 or something like that. I think I looked it up. Grimwade Syndrome. I know we titled the RFS episode. Anyway, we would have talked about what should have been completely different facets. I don't doubt. Mm-hmm. But as far as this is concerned, wow, was it not good? You're bang on. Jones had nothing to work with. Nothing to work with. The only good stuff, story wise, it's a hot mess after episode 1. Direction wise, it's a hot mess about halfway through episode 1. At the start, all the Heathrow stuff looks really, really good. As I said before, the cockpit stuff looks good. I mean, you feel the compressed nature of the scene and whatever, and just I mean, I don't know how many productions get to normally shoot in Heathrow like that, but I get the feeling they probably had more access than most productions.
Certainly, I think it was the first place to shoot on the Concorde at the very least. Maybe
British Airways had had input into the script to make sure that they looked good. It was, basically product placement for BA. There's some stuff that looks really, really good at the outset, and story wise, it sets up as a cool little mystery, and like what happened to Golf Alpha Charlie, and it's not bad, and then we get to the studio.
Mrs. Screams, basically, and she screams for all of us because it cuts immediately to this awful blue screen shot, which is like just terrible. Yeah.
Oh, that's CSO. Oh my goodness. Yeah, yeah. When they think they're still at Heathrow and they're actually not. Oh yeah. I felt so bad for them. Yeah. But there are those who have rightly criticized things like 60s Star Trek alien planet sets with the just the rocks and the weird colored background and whatnot. Yeah, that often happened.
And the whistling. Don't forget the whistling sound. That's what puts it all together.
This takes that lack of effort and cheesiness to the next level. And holy smokes.
How dare you re-Star Trek?
And this is probably not Jones's fault. I don't know if he had any input in it or not, but my favorite studio-based faux pas, for lack of a better term. So for the initial Concorde stuff, they use stock footage of Concorde flying, and you see British Airways emblazoned on the side toward the nose. Yeah. And then they have this little Concorde model that they put like toward the back of the set for scale and whatnot. And this is up there with the Action Man toy tank from Robot. The Concorde model, the Concorde model just says British. Not British Airways, just British.
Never noticed that. Wow.
And
it's very proud. It's very proud of its heritage.
But oh man, that's everything studio based just looks so atrocious. I mean, there's was it episode 3, I think, where the professor goes to talk to the Seraphim, and they have the weird lighting effect, and that looks kind of okay, I guess. But other than that, I mean, like, just the production itself, and again, I have no idea. I mean, Ron Jones had to have had some input in at least some of this, but plasmatons, two-headed snake puppet, Concorde model, Khalid, it's just so bad. I've got nothing better, like nothing more descriptive than that.
Yeah. I watched ahead to the making of Frontios talk, which we'll talk about next week, obviously. But I just wanted to get some insights because I know they were talking about the director a little bit, and just as an overall sense. And Peter Davis sort of saying in regards to something in Frontios, but I think you can sort of look at it in regards to Time Flight. Is that a lot of people, even Eric Saber was saying this about how he was he didn't stand up for things. He was everyone liked him. He was very nice, and I think he wanted to be
Jones?
liked. Talking about Jones here. He wanted to be liked, and so was nice to everyone on set, even though, like, perhaps maybe when the plasmatons showed up, maybe he should have said, you know what, can we fix those? That's not good. But he was such a novice director, and perhaps he just didn't have the backbone and will to annoy people that he didn't sort of say, hey, visual effects department, can we change this? These are just people wearing polystyrene tops, and they look ridiculous. And instead he didn't, and so we got what we got because he didn't have the power to sort of say no, or the confidence to say no.
I mean, God bless him, Peter Davison. Well, actually, the cast as a whole, for the most part, they acted their butts off. Like there's one scene where the professor Stapley is kind of lapsing back into being hypnotized, and the professor snaps him out of it, and then they get the co-pilot.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah, they get the co-pilot and the other guys whose names I don't have up
Bilton
in front of me,
and Scobie.
But I can look it up. Bilton and Scobie. There we go. Thank you. they get them back away from the hypnosis and whatever, and then they get kind of teleported to the room with Khalid and the doctor, and you know, they talk about the plasmatons, and Davison is the doctor, because they tick off Khalid, and Davison says, you know, the plasmatons are one thing, but what's coming now? Because there's something being generated into the room, and Davison's like, what's coming now is worse than anything you've ever dealt with before, and it's a two-headed snake puppet. Looks like, you know, you thought the Bandrels were bad. Oh,
it's a predecessor. Well, I didn't think they were. They definitely were.
Yeah.
So it's just, I mean, like I say, it's the actors are trying to do their bits to salvage what they can, and then there's another scene that in that vein where there's Nyssa the Doctor and Tegan at the Xeraphim sarcophagus, where they're like, you know, entranced, and they're trying to, like, I don't know, do some psychokinetic thing or something.
Yeah.
That story is impossible to follow. I swear.
The scenes in the Sanctum are some of my least favorite scenes in Doctor Who history. I just hate them. This is why the story rate's so low for me. Just like, oh God, you know, talk to me, my brother. We are the Xeraphim, and now we are fighting somehow by talking. And you've talked me out of my purpose. I just thought this is really not a good scene, and it doesn't look good at all, and it's not played very well, and it's not directed very well. But as you say, the beginning, and indeed I think parts of the last episodes, you know, are pretty great. The stuff shot on film and on Heathrow, and just the mystery of it all. And there's a shot when the air traffic controller is in the desk on the meeting room, and he stands up and he actually rises into frame. And even as a kid, I thought that was a neat shot. Good job, Ron Jones, on that. But let's face it. We've watched a lot of fairly middle of the road to less than good Peter Davison stuff over the past while for this podcast, and God bless Peter Davison for like pulling so much stuff out of the whirlpool of death to try and salvage episodes with his performances, because he has to do that a lot in some of these stories, I find.
And he doesn't get enough credit for doing that, frankly.
He really doesn't. But honestly, the stars of Time Flight are Captain Stapley, Bilton, and Scobie, because they are tremendous. I loved watching them in this. So at least I have that to take away from Time Flight.
And for better or for worse, Sarah Sutton's the opposite of them. She was kind of like the big letdown.
Oh, really? You think so?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
It's funny you mentioned Sarah Sutton, because she said during the making of Black Orchid documentary that she was unsure of what to do with Anne Talbot in Black Orchid, and because it's, you know, she's playing an entirely different character, and she wasn't really getting that much direction from Ron Jones on that. And then
what a shock.
Mark Strickson in the Frontios doc said the same thing. Like, I like to be directed as an actor, and I wasn't getting any direction. So basically, Ron Jones is just just sort of saying, let's just put the camera up and just shoot it, and let's just get it over with.
As we'll probably talk about next week. I haven't. Frontios is the one I'm going to look after for next week. Spoilers.
Yeah.
So as we'll probably get to the next week, the whole Mark Strickson spitting, drooling scene.
Yeah.
If only he had better or more direction from Jones, his spit could have done more.
It could have done more.
I don't know.
I don't know either. Any last
like, I know you're going to ask me about what I thought about it, and I can tell you right now, nothing. I have not watched this since it came out, since I saw it as a kid. I refuse because it's so bad.
The last time I watched this would have been for the Grimwade Miniscope.
We did a commentary for it we might have done it before the Grimwade thing. I can't even remember.
Did we? I blanked it from my memory.
We did.
Yeah, Paul Heath from Pharos Project joined us, as I recall, on that particular podcast.
Maybe I wasn't there for it.
Maybe that's why. Maybe you weren't there. Maybe you somehow...
For a commentary?
For a commentary, yeah. I know. Look it up. I could be wrong about that, but look it up.
I mean, you're probably right. Yeah, because it skips from Earthshock to Modern Undead for the commentary randomizer. So, yeah, we've done it.
Yeah, we sure have.
Wow.
That's Time Flight right there. Did a commentary with it. Had somebody over to do the commentary. Don't remember the commentary. time
I
flight.
have no recollection of that event.
No.
Wow.
And it's funny is that, Warren, you haven't watched it since you were a kid, probably. I watched it twice in the space of like a couple weeks because Verity just reviewed it as well, and I was in the room watching it. So I am full of time flight right now.
I'm sorry about that.
Had it, done with it now.
I think you can claim disability with that as an affliction, full of time flight.
Yeah. With a green gunge, perhaps, it spills out of the master as Khalid at the end of episode 2, being a symptom.
Banana custard.
Let's
I don't know what it is.
let's please move on to Arc of Infinity, the first story broadcast, but second made in the 20th anniversary season of TV's Doctor Who, where they go to Amsterdam. How about that? And Omega returns and all sorts of shenanigans. And Gallifrey, my word.
Yep,
and,
all covered in my notes.
Yeah, and also sofas. Lots of sofas.
Coffee shop
indeed.
Gallifrey. Yep.
Yeah. So Warren, this is your assignment. What do you think of this one?
I always had kind of a soft spot for Arc of Infinity until now. It's kind of gone down a little bit given the prism we're watching it through.
Yeah.
And I started out with writing out, what was the sound playing under Omega's transmission? Or was it playing in the Three Doctors? Is that why it's here? Because it's like Chris said with the previous thing, with the engine. It's so overmixed, or like it's that sound dominates the entire scene, and it's only there for him communicating with who we later find out is Engen or whatever the hell it is. It doesn't bode well. And another thing is, this is the start of them trying to hide the identity of who these people are by having the point of view shots, which is, for Ron Jones, somewhat innovative, but it never really works. You know? I also said, I love a behind the roundel scene, because they do have one of those in here. I love it when they'll pop a roundel open and just screw around with bad electronics just to fill time, because as a kid I'd be like, oh, look, they're doing stuff with the roundels.
Right.
And to be fair, the stuff where time's being distorted or whatever's happening in the TARDIS isn't terrible. I've seen worse. I've also seen better. They did use Mirrorlon. One note, and this is not Ron Jones's fault. Why is a Time Lord having a hard time getting audio to his TV? This is something anybody can do. or your parents call you to get it fixed. One way or the other. It's just going to happen. In terms of performances, the Australians are terrible. They are very unconvincing. They may very well be Australian, but they don't seem to be.
Well, at least take your boots off. That's
God, yeah, that is just excruciating. All that stuff. It's just just bad. Yeah, like I said, all the POV stuff is a bold attempt, but doesn't quite gel. I did type out Mirrorlon in all caps because there's some Mirrorlon in this.
I know.
I also typed out Ergon shoots an angel statue, thus creating the Weeping Angels. So there you go.
That's true.
The Ergon I thought was cooler as a kid. It is not cool.
It's cool. So it's cool as a fun one-off Gallifrey 1 cosplay, because
but that's
one year that
is.
somebody dressed as an Ergon. It was amazing, because it's like, why would you put so much effort into making one of the worst monsters in Doctor Who?
I mean, purely as a costume, it's kind of a cool costume. It has no place being here, but it's kind of a cool costume. And I know you hate Omega's new outfit. I don't mind Omega's new outfit. It doesn't look quite as cartoony as the first one did.
I like the first one.
It looks weird and silly, but I don't hate it.
Yeah. When Colin Baker shows up, starting a grand tradition, there's a giant zoom on him.
Oh, that's right, isn't there? Yeah, there's a couple zooms even on Davison as well, and the big crash zoom into a Barusa during his
there's a lot of crash zooms in this, more than you think. Maxwell's flair is awe-inspiring is one note I had, because it really is over the top with that hat. Like, what's going on? Why does the chief guard have the most, I don't know, plumage, for lack of a better term?
Mm-hmm.
And like you said before, all Gallifrey is technocratic, dull, and yet more colorful than Deadly Assassin and Invasion of Time put together, and none of it really works. There's so many over-the-shoulder shots, it's actually kind of irritating to see, like, for some reason. I don't know if this is strictly a BritBox thing, but on episode 2, it was really overexposed and like super grainy. And I don't know if that was just something we always had, or if that's just BritBox's screw up, because it was weird. Did
BritBox? I think I asked this before, and you probably told me. Did BritBox show the revamped special effects version or the standard?
This is regular special effects.
Okay.
At least the ray guns or stasers.
Yeah.
Let's see here. There's one time in one of the couch scenes, one of the medi couch scenes, and Gallifrey at least looks different than before. It doesn't look better. Like Invasion of Time is probably the best one as far as sets go, I think. But
Invasion of Time used the sets from Deadly Assassins. So.
Yeah, but they also added to it that really cool room full of gears for Barus's room and all that stuff. This does none of that. They got the couches and all the rest. I said one Time Lord is wearing what could only be described as Mrs. Roper's gown because it's like this out of place curtain that doesn't fit any of the Patrexes or whatever the hell else is Pyridonians. It's just this random bad 80s pattern that they just kind of, hey, here's a shawl, just wear this. Like, I was like, what? How did I never notice that before? Again, I don't know if any of this is Ron Jones's fault. The performances definitely are. I also said if Tegan is kind of selfish as this, and the High Council set looks terrible. Like this is not. They got these cheap like convention chairs, basically. Not even convention chairs.
It looks like a game show set.
It does.
Yeah, like a game show set, or it looks like a community meeting or something. It just doesn't. You don't buy that it's like this. These are the
Gallifreyan AA.
Yeah. I think technically it is kind of a community meeting, but still, you don't buy this as a seat of the ultimate power of the universe when they got these cheap ass school chairs. Tegan comes off as really selfish in this, so that's kind of down to him. Like she's just like, well, what about me the whole time? That's kind of down to the writing too, I suppose.
Well, hey, I mean, Tegan gets her first costume change since joining the series.
That's true.
And
yes,
she deserves to be a little cock of the walk and selfish as a result.
I also said if I was the Amsterdam police, I would be very angry with this story because they look terrible in this. Like they just don't care about this missing guy. They take any chance they can to slag off the Amsterdam police. I'm not sure why. I said there's a zoom in on Davison as the charge is read, and his eyes are like darting all over the place. So was this an alternate take or something? Like I said, it feels like it's editing cover for a botched take. And there's a few scenes here where it's like, I know it probably wasn't because this is all presumably being mixed together in studio, but it totally feels like they slapped something over top of it as cover of something bad. It just doesn't feel like it matches the rest of what's going on.
Well, you assume that they have time to do such a thing in 1980.
Yeah, and I'm not sure they did. The climactic shot of episode 2 is Nyssa turning her head, which also feels like editing cover. It's like, blah, 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 the verdict, turn. That's it. That's the whole climax. Yep. I was like, oh, okay. The giant Omega head, actually, I'm going to say the Matrix stuff for what you had to work with in 1983 isn't too bad. Like, if you want to convey...
No. Really? See, now,
yes.
this is where we must part ways here, Warren. Okay,
because,
go on.
Of course, it's not going to be him running around fighting a clown in, like, a mystery world. Like, that's just not what the story requires. So you've got him floating around, and you've got this kind of weird visual in the background, and then you have Omega coming up, giant Omega. I thought they tried their best, given what they had to do with that. So now, why do you hate it?
Because it looks ridiculous. I can't tell if like it looks dumb when Davison is sort of like, is he lying down? Is he floating? Is he sitting? But then when you get Tegan in there, and she is totally just sort of like 3 sheets to the wind on a bar stool somewhere in Amsterdam.
All right, okay, but as an idea,
wobbling. And I mean,
as a visual, I didn't mind it. I was like, if you're going to portray the Matrix, how else are you going to do it? Like for what you need for this story.
I think it would have been interesting if they just had, maybe it would have been written on this perhaps, and I get the impression that Ron Holmes just sort of like looked at the words of the page. Okay, that's what we're doing. We're just going to do whatever this is, and not use any of my sort of creativity and sort of try and create something out of this. I'm just going to go word for it and see if we can come up with what is being written down. I thought it'd be kind of neat if they were just like it's some weird like sort of mind robber-esque white cyclorama and just sort of standing there,
Chris, what's your take on this? You got to break this tie.
The Matrix.
My take on what? The Matrix itself?
The Matrix,
the portrayal of the Matrix,
in our
community.
And how it was done.
So Davison sitting on the office chair, laying back, and
exactly.
Yeah, dismal.
Yeah.
Okay, well, but they did use it in the Name of the Doctor sort of montage. Yeah. So
doesn't mean it's right.
I'm giving an extra point for it. I don't mind it, honestly.
On the nostalgia tip, I don't know if it was every PBS or if it's something KSPS got together themselves or if it was BBC or Worldwide or whatever. But I remember quite frequently there'd be like promotional stuff on KSPS for Doctor Who in general, and there was this montage that they ran where they had clips of the various Doctors up to 5th or 6th. I can't remember how far it went. Maybe 7th. But the clip they used for Peter Davison was the tube coming down in the smoke from this.
That sounds familiar. Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. So I saw that like a bajillion times. So that's like burned into my gray matter. And then as far as just a little contribution relative to Jones, I have some pretty fond and vivid memories of coming home from somewhere. Couldn't tell you where. But on a Saturday night, flipping the TV on and going over to KSPS because Doctor Who was on. And it was like 5-10 minutes left in Arc of Infinity, and just like the chase through the streets of Amsterdam, and
which I'll get to.
Rice Krispies on the face and all that kind of stuff. But not unlike Black Orchid Time Flight, I haven't watched Arc of Infinity since probably our commentary for it, but. I want to say that Jones, again, on the filming stuff, did exceptionally well versus studio stuff.
Jones basically concocted that entire chase sequence on his own. Like, basically the script was they chased through Amsterdam, and so Jones would have like looked around locations. Okay, we could do a thing here, maybe this here. So like he basically made that. Like that last 10 minutes of that chase through Amsterdam. Well, people might feel it's superfluous. I don't. As I said before, it's the one time my dad was actually interested in Doctor Who. But it is actually well put together, I think. That whole bit. I think a lot of the film sequences in Amsterdam are.
And besides that, Omega is not given a hell of a lot to do in the last episode except melt. But once Davison is playing Omega, he does a pretty damn good job of playing a guy who's been stuck in the void forever and is just sort of discovering life for the first time again. Davison's really good at that. Like that whole thing where they're looking at the automatons or whatever they are, like the pipe organ thing. Yeah. And he looks down at that little kid. Like that, all that really works. And, I got to give Ron Jones credit for that. That's a pretty good sequence. And Peter Davison for that matter.
Yeah.
There's that whole scene where he bowls into a lady with a bag of fruit. There's no particularly good reason for that. Like I was just like, why is this even in here? Like, what's the point of this?
Comic relief, perhaps.
Yeah, but it's just kind of dumb. And other than that, the other thing I said was privacy does not exist in Holland. Anytime you ask, but my friend is in trouble. Oh, well, sure, fine then. Like 4 or 5 times this happens where they just give away info to anybody, all and sundry.
Well, there's probably a lot of. Hey, it's a free music country, the Netherlands. You understand? I mean, they're all
sure. You bet.
They're all pretty loose over there. So
hosts of 2020 Eurovision.
Sure is. I don't think that I have much to add to Arc of Infinity other than to say that the film sequences are actually above par compared to some of the other film sequences.
The later ones are. The ones with the 2 Australians are pretty bad.
Less so. But the studio stuff, listen, and I'm sure we'll probably come to the same conclusions next week during the latter half of this Miniscope. I feel like there's nothing really overly wrong with Ron Jones' direction, but there's not necessarily anything right with it either. It's functional. It's serviceable.
He got paid to do the job and do the job he did.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you know what? I burned through, and now Warren, you're doing the same thing. I burned through Deep Space Nine over the course of like 2 months, basically 7 seasons worth. And let me tell you, some of that stuff was basically let's get it in the can because we've got like 8 days to shoot this 1 hour episode, and we can't afford to get too picky with some of these shots. So some of these shots are just going to have to be shoot them this way, get the coverage, boom, we're done. Let's move on. And you know what? Sometimes that's what happens in this Doctor Who as well. So I guess you take, as I said before, you take the Peter Grimwades and the Graham Harpers with the Ron Jones and Peter Moffats of the world.
It's not all going to be solid gold. What do you do?
Yeah.
And I don't know if this is an aspect we talked about when we did the Johnny Byrne Miniscope or not, but there's some similarities between this and the 5 Doctors as well, which in some ways sit well, in some ways sit poorly with me, like the betrayal of the High Council Time Lord of the Doctor, Paul Jericho being in there, and just Gallifreyan's setting and stuff. So it gives me some fond associations with the 5 Doctors, which I think we all adore, and some not so fond ones.
No. But perhaps not so fond ones for his next 3 stories: Frontios, Vengeance on Veros, and Mind Warp, which will be
that's a safe bet.
Yeah, they'll be the focus of our next Miniscope next week, everyone, as we tackle the last half of Ron Jones' Doctor Who directing career. do tune in for that. I'm looking forward to watching some of these stories for the first time in a little while, so we'll see how they do and how they make out. Yeah. Until then, though, everyone, I am Stephen in Edmonton.
Warren in Vancouver.
And Chris in Edmonton.
So long for now.
You've been listening to Radio Free Skaro. Find us online at radiofreeskaro.com, follow us on Twitter and Tumblr at Radio Free Skaro, subscribe to us on iTunes, and donate to the show at patreon.com/Radio Free Skaro. Thank you.